Hey, friends! Welcome to the School of Hard Knocks with Darcie, a place where we become unstuck from trauma and grounded in our healing. I'm your host, Darcie, and I'm a proud multi-graduate of the School of Hard Knocks. Life has a way of teaching us lessons we never asked for, but here we take those lessons and turn them into healing, strength, and self-leadership. I'm so glad you're here. Let's dive in.
Just a quick reminder. This podcast shares personal stories and lived experiences. It's not therapy. It's not counseling or legal advice. If you need professional help, please reach out to a licensed provider.
Hey, the School of Hard Knocks, welcome back. Class is in session. I am here with my Season in Blooming Rebuilt series, and today joining us is Shauna Hawks. Did I say that right?
You did. Well done.
Awesome. Welcome to the School of Hard Knocks, Shauna.
Thank you.
So I'm going to introduce you guys to Shauna. Shauna is a women's next chapter mentor, a Gene Keys guide, and yoga teacher of over 17 years. She helps women stop overthinking, break self-sabotage, and build real self-trust so they can move forward with clarity, confidence, and ease. Oh, the dream. Oh, I love it. All right, Shauna. Well, take me back a little bit. What happened to get us to where we are now?
Okay. It's always funny when you get asked this question because it's like, what am I going to say, right? There's a lot of experiences I think we have in life, and it's pinpointing what are the ones that sort of brought me to where I am. But the gist of it is I grew up in I would call it a highly traumatic environment. Not so much in an outward way. Like a lot of people had no idea what was actually going on in my household. Um, but my mother was very sick when I was growing up. She was highly depressed and very suicidal. So most of my life was trying to save her from taking her own life, just out of that really deep despair that she felt. My she was married, and my parents got divorced when my mother was pregnant with me. And so I never met my dad until I was a little bit older. I think I was about 6. And he had paranoid schizophrenia, and dealt with a lot of mental health issues. And unfortunately, due to those health issues, there were a lot of experiences that I had. I only saw him a few times a year, and when I did, he was sexually abusive, and at one time tried to strangle me. And we had a few interactions where his version of reality and what reality was were very blurred lines. And so unfortunately I got caught in the middle of that. And because I only saw him a few times a year, my mother never knew what was going on either. So everything was kept on the down low, and sort of I was holding that within me. When I was about 2, my mom met a woman who came into her life, and she was a narcissistic homicide detective turned trauma therapist. And that was a cocktail for a lot of messiness, to say the least. And my upbringing was about, your mom wouldn't be this way if it wasn't for you. You're the one that's in the way. And there's sort of like a lot of sabotage that was very much underneath the surface. And it's only been in the last few years that I really understood that, oh wow, she was actually a narcissist, and I was being gaslit. And no wonder I had so many struggles trying to trust myself, because it was like I would have intuition, or I'd feel something, and I could never trust myself because I was told, that what you're thinking or what you're doing is wrong, or something along that line. So it kind of sent me into a bit of a head spin. And I think I used my mind to override my body my whole life. Fortunately, I found soccer at about 12 and was highly successful playing soccer and was able to go to university and play at a high level and yeah, get paid to play soccer. So that was sort of my saving grace in many ways. And I met God at a young age. I grew up in the church, even though my life was very dysfunctional, and in a way for that period of time, it did save me. So, that there were, I was always looked after in some way that, because I look at my story and I think I probably should have been pregnant at 15 and on drugs, but I wasn't. And I'm really grateful for that. But I guess, what's the reason of me telling all this and how do I end up here now where I am? And I went to college and I got a bachelor in social work. And I think that my desire to study social work is that if I can just figure out why people do these things that they do, then somehow it'll make me feel better about my life. And so then that put me into roles where I was putting myself in really difficult situations, maximum security male prisons and girls in drug and alcohol rehab and living with them and girls in teenage pregnancy. It was just these high risk environments where I was essentially just repeating the pattern of that high fight or flight nervous system response to life, because I didn't know anything different. And I thought if I just keep doing that, that'll make me feel better. It actually intensified things. And slowly, because I was studying social work, I was told that I had to do 4 years of, I was told I had to do a year of counseling. So it ended up turning into 4 years. And then that started me on my healing journey. And then I went to Australia. I met my husband on the streets of Byron Bay on New Year's Eve, which is one of those stories. And moved to Australia when I was 25, and really that's when my true healing journey began. When I found yoga, I learned what it meant to be in my body and to get out of my head. I learned what healing truly was, which is not through the mind, it's through the nervous system. And I learned how to trust myself and to listen to what had always been a part of me, but I didn't know how to. And so, really, the next, up to this point, I mean, yesterday was my birthday, so now I can say 44 years young. But
Well,
so
happy belated birthday.
thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. So yeah, now it's been 20 years of just deeply healing my nervous system and working with women and really anyone, all people through yoga, through retreats, through the Gene Keys, through mentorship, learning how to regulate the nervous system, because when the nervous system is regulated, then we relax and we can really listen to ourselves and we can really step into our full potential. And so I feel really blessed to be where I am now, and I can honestly say I live a really, really good life. It didn't start that way, but I'm very grateful for everything I've experienced that's led me to exactly where I am here today talking to you.
I absolutely love that. Like that's my favorite part is when we have to talk about the bad in order to really appreciate where we're grounded at now. And
Yeah.
it's like my favorite thing when people, you become thankful for the things that you went through,
Mhm.
knowing that if you didn't go through those, you may not be the same person that you are today.
Mhm.
So you've been in a healing journey for 20 years. I
Mhm.
have been in mine for 10 months.
Oh,
So,
okay.
I mean, and I'm 46, so I
Okay.
got you by a little bit.
Yeah. Okay.
But I went through a lot of childhood trauma myself and things in my teenage years and adult life and all of this stuff that I talk about a lot here on the School of Hard Knocks. That's actually why this podcast was born. It was
Mm.
initially born as a way for me to start to let some of the stuff out of the box. and to
Mm,
stop feeling like I had to hold it all inside. I have quickly become very grateful as I've made it to where I am now for the things that I've gone through in my life because I love myself. And
mm,
I'm really happy, to be living in these days that I couldn't have even prayed for because I didn't even know that they existed. So it's
yes.
such a different place to be. So you talk about your mother having mental health and how you did a lot of trying to take care of her and help her. What
Mm-hmm.
did that look like in your childhood as far as your age? Because I know you phoned soccer at 12, you said, but as far as age, how was that trying to do that?
Mm. I guess it's interesting because I never knew anything different.
Hmm.
So when you don't really know anything different, you don't have anything to compare it to, and you don't really know that things are as messed up as they are, really. I think it's upon reflection that I realize, oh, wow, I went through a lot and, have been very resilient. And what was that like? It was only what I knew. But my mom, she actually she was such a beautiful woman. She had such a good heart, but unfortunately she had a lot of trauma. And it was only, she did go to counseling, but I think counseling can be beautiful for a period of time. It deals with the head space, but her nervous system never really, I don't think, regulated or recovered from a lot of the things that she had experienced in her life. And so what that looked like is she was an exercise fanatic and she was, highly anorexic most of my life. And so she wouldn't eat and then she would go for 2.5 hour runs and sometimes just have no concept of time. It's like she was trying to run away from herself and then she'd come home and then she'd just collapse in a heap, because she hadn't eaten and she had over sweated and she would wear, plastic bags underneath her arms and tie rubber bands so she could hold the sweat in, things like that, that I guess I don't even know if those things happen anymore, but for me that was just a reality and she sort of would self-punish herself for the experiences she had had and I was sort of always the one to pick up the pieces, I think, in the end. And I think that's why she ended up being with a woman because she just came in and was like, I'm going to rescue you and not maybe didn't go into that relationship out of like a deep, like, this is really what I love and I feel called to do. Because my mom always walked very closely with God, like always. So she always felt a bit of but I think she felt rescued by this woman. This woman was like, I'll take care of you and I've got the answers. And my mom sort of slid into there. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, very interesting and relatable. I mean, because you're
Mm-hmm.
right, you don't know what you don't know until you do know. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't realize that my childhood was traumatic until probably almost 10 when I,
Mm,
had a sleepover at a friend's house and I was like, there's like no drinking or alcohol or
mm,
drugs or yelling and why are we all sitting at the same table together? It's just like those normal things
yeah,
that felt like y'all are kind of weird and it was like
yeah,
no, that's kind of like what people do when they're not
yeah,
living in that kind of a
yeah,
situation.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, wow. Do you know very much about your mom's past and the things that she had gone through?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, she had suffered, molestation, sexual molestation by her brothers, which goes pretty deep. And her parents were missionaries in Brazil, and she was raised in Brazil. And I don't think her parents were around; they were too busy saving the rest of the world. And in the meantime, her brothers were doing things to her, and they were next door at the whorehouses, and I think there were a lot of stuff that was going on. I do know one of her brothers ended up killing someone from drunk driving, like things like that, and then ended up in a full coma, and then in his coma, beat her dad, and my mom watched it, just things like that that you don't and then it was never talked about. Nothing was ever talked about. It was just like just shut your mouth and just carry on and stay in the church, unfortunately, and there was this really dysfunctional relationship, I think, in understanding how does this, how does life work, and what is true, and yeah, so I know that, I have a lot of respect for my mom. I think she did the best she could. And look, we had a dear relationship up until the moment she passed. She passed about 6 years ago. And we healed a lot of stuff that wasn't healed. And there's a lot of stuff I told her I hadn't told her. And she grieved it, but we healed it. And I'm so grateful.
Yeah, that's beautiful. The reason why I asked that question when people start talking about the things that their parents were doing is because I know about my dad's past. And, I always say that it doesn't excuse anything that my dad did to myself, my siblings, and to my mother. But there's like a reasoning, there's an understanding, there's there to find help in the 70s and 80s and 90s with mental health and abuse, drug abuse, and all of this stuff, you'd have to open up a phone book, go to the yellow pages, take the phone off the wall, dial the little things, and you
Mm,
had to humble yourself first of all to even do it,
mm,
and then wait for the appointment and have the courage to walk in and to do the thing. Now it's accessible. We all have these boxes that we walk around with all day long, and you can not even have to go on to anything. You just talk to it and just ask it, hey, so and so, can you tell me the closest place to go for help? And
yeah.
it doesn't, it will never excuse what my dad did, but it gave me an understanding. I mean, same with my mom. My mom placated to my dad and enabled and allowed these things to happen for almost 20 years with them having 9 children, and there was
Mm,
like no stopping the abuse. My dad was basically like our life. I often refer to it as Ozzy Osbourne's song Crazy Train, because it was
yeah.
just a very, like, I mean, not pleasant type of atmosphere. But I love my dad dearly, and he
Mm,
worked very hard as an adult to be a good dad for me.
mm,
And,
mm,
I believe that most people deserve some type of forgiveness. And if it's not for them, it's for you. And I
mhm,
know for me to be able to put some of that to the side, we had to have that conversation. So,
mm,
it's always interesting to me because that's typically what happens. It's the trickle effect. And it seems like this generation, like our age of people, have been doing a lot better at breaking these generational curses,
absolutely.
finding the help and not being ashamed and just going into it. And it's so great because, like, my siblings don't abuse their children, they don't abuse their spouses. I think my one sister slapped her husband one night a long time ago in a fit of being pissed off about something when they were drinking. But it's
Mm,
not this like my dad used to beat my mom like she was a man. It wasn't like
mm,
that. You know what I mean?
mm,
So
mm,
there's 9 of us, and 8 out of 9 of us have broken these generational curses. And it's just this
mm,
crazy, awesome statistic that I'm super
mm.
proud of. I'm proud
Yeah,
of all of my
beautiful.
siblings for, not succumbing to the lack of knowledge that we even had coming into life. We were dealt a really bad hand, but we've just
Mm,
done the best that we can with it, and even better. Somehow we
yeah,
figured out how to trade in some of the cards and get some really good ones, and that's been really cool too.
I love that. I love
So
that.
yeah, I love that too. So playing soccer. Tell
Mm,
me about the first time that you realized that this was like, oh, I really like this. It feels good. I have something that
mm.
I have that I'm proud of. Tell me about that.
Gosh, man, when was the last time I was asked when I started? I don't know if I've ever been asked this question. I think I was just looking for an escape at
Hmm.
recess. I never really got along well with girls when I was younger. I didn't know how to connect with them super well. I actually worked better with boys. I think because I enjoyed to move. I've always been quite a mover and found a lot of stability through my movement and a lot of freedom in that way. So I think I just put myself on the pitch and I decided that I would be the goalkeeper. And it sort of evolved from there. And it was a high pressure situation, but I felt like that's where I thrived. I've never really backed down from high pressure situations. I've always actually thrived in them. So it felt good. It felt like fun to me. And that's sort of how it began. I then went on and, yeah, became a great soccer player and trained for the Olympics. I didn't make it through to the Olympics, but I trained with the at the highest level competing for that position, with an understanding that I was never going to be able to beat the top, to beat Hope Solo. I was just never going to be able to be that good, and I accepted that, and that's sort of when I moved on to Australia. But I had a really good go at it. I had a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. It was a great outlet for me. Not that I had healed my wounds. I think I was quite aggressive on the field with my mouth. I think I probably created a lot of damage with the things I said in that period of time, blaming other people for the pain I was experiencing. So in one ways it was beautiful, and in other ways I probably, yeah, reflecting back on that, would have chosen some different decisions if I could have. Yeah.
But what a crazy, amazing thing to be so proud of, right? Like
Yes,
you're
yes.
just we get so used to these. I played soccer, like no big deal. Like girl, you were like there, like
Oh,
come
bless.
on, that's incredible.
Oh, thank you. That's sweet.
We always cut ourselves so short,
Mm,
like it was, and I'm over here like goosebumping. Like, are you kidding me? That's like, do you know how many people never even have that opportunity? Not because
yeah.
it's not out there, but because they don't have the drive. They don't have the
Mm,
dedication. They don't have the show up, the consistency,
mm,
the goal orientation. It takes
mm,
special people to get to that level, especially somebody who's gone through trauma for the
mm,
majority of their life, to be
mm,
able to set that aside, push it down, which, wasn't healthy. We obviously don't recommend doing that. But when you're a kid and it's working and it feels good and it feels like an outlet, and although maybe having a mouth on the field isn't the healthiest thing to do, you're also not out there drinking and doing
mm,
drugs and doing these bad
mm.
things. So, kind of weighing that out a little bit, it sounds like you did pretty dang good with it, Shauna.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I received that. That's
Yes,
lovely.
good. I'm
Yeah.
so glad. Well, and we're talking about the social work. It's interesting to me when I'm talking to a lot of people, myself included, when they would ask me, what do you want to be when you grow up? It was like a psychologist, a counselor, a social worker. And it's interesting with kids in particular that go through that kind of childhood trauma. It seems like that's always their initial go to is they want something that they can help another child, human, it doesn't matter, not have to endure those type of things. Is that kind of where that feeling was for you?
Yeah, and I mean, I'll share something. It's connected, but it's a little bit separate. But I think you had mentioned, I'm a Gene Keys guide, and Gene Keys has been this real heart opener for me in the last sort of 5 years. And the guy who created this system, it's based on astrology and on the I Ching, which is like this ancient Chinese text. But you have all these different keys that describe sort of the things that what your gifts are and what your challenges will be, what your shadows are. And it's this it created a lot of freedom for me when I learned about it. And one thing he said, he actually said this only a couple weeks ago. He said, your wounding is your purpose. It is your purpose. And I was looking in my purpose sphere, and it was understanding. It's moving from intolerance to understanding to forgiveness. And I think that the things that happened in my childhood were the wounding was what I was meant to then move into. Yeah, it's not like, so I think that any experience that anyone has, whatever they struggle with, it then becomes their purpose in life. It's
Yeah.
like that is your purpose, to heal that. And so it doesn't surprise me that many people who go through difficult things, like exactly what you're doing today in the podcast, you want to take these experiences and you want to create beauty. You want to take the messiness and turn it into art and then frame it. And so, yeah, I feel like many people do that, and I feel like I'm no exception. I think the drive though was not the right kind of drive. The drive was, if I can figure it all out, then I'll heal myself. And
Mm,
that didn't happen. It didn't heal me. It just put me into a fucking head spin,
yeah.
really. And but as soon as I worked through deeper healing modalities and through my body was just like, and started to relax. And I'm still doing the work. I think I'm always doing the layers, always going that layer deeper and going, I didn't know that was stored in the body, but it's so beautiful, so beautiful. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's what I talk about here is, this is the place we become unstuck from trauma and grounded
Mm,
in healing. Healing is
beautiful.
forever. Healing is forever. I mean, we're going to heal
Mm,
from things that we've gone through forever. It changes a little bit of how we respond, to different things, and that's great. But the grounding part of it is important, first of all, for happiness, joy, all of that stuff. But more importantly, because life can be an asshole. And it's
yeah.
gonna keep throwing things at you, and it's gonna keep throwing things at you. And if you cannot get yourself to a level of grounding, you are gonna be flat on your back for the majority of your life. And then
Mm,
life is gonna laugh at you and kick you around because you're not getting up. Life
mm.
is literally should be like surrounded around like the Rocky Balboa. Because it is like, how hard, can you keep getting hit and keep getting up? I mean, there are so many times, and I have seen the Rocky movies a million times, in my
Mm,
life, and still sometimes I'm like, just stay down, like let it be, because he'll keep getting up, but that's that drive. That's that
mm,
it doesn't matter. The last one that came out actually, when now Sylvester is the coach, right? I
mm,
was crying at the end of it because
mm,
the meaning of it is so different for somebody who's gone through healing in their life. And he
mm.
didn't go into that fight to beat that kid. He went into that fight to show that he could still do it. He went into
Absolutely.
that fight to show that he still has, what it takes to stand there. So as he's walking out and this kid is like, he's the winner, was he? Because
Mm,
everybody else was celebrating Rocky, right?
mhm,
And it just
mm,
was like, that's what life is about. You don't give up. You have to keep going. You have to stay grounded because life is going to keep coming around. I'm 7 months into a grief journey right now. My dad passed away 7 months ago. And
mm,
so I'm grounded in my healing enough to know something else is going to happen after this. And I'm not
mm,
going to let it take me down. But that's what
mm,
happens when you start to really put these roots down and you start to get grounded in your healing.
mm,
I mean, it's such a good place to go. So you have I think it's so cute because you said it twice about meeting your hubby on New Year's
mm,
Eve, and you're like, it's just one of those stories. And now, if you're okay sharing a little bit of it, I must
mm.
hear it because you
Yeah.
made this. It was just almost the Olympics, and I'm like, girl, spill the tea about the husband on New Year's Eve because it's probably amazing, and you're just
Mm,
not tooting your horn enough about it.
yeah. It's a special, special story, and and I'll give you the background of it as well, which you'll love because I feel like you're a story kind of girl.
Yeah.
Yes. So the background of it is I said to my mom, I've always wanted to go to Australia. I've just the beaches and I want to be a surfer girl, and I was at that point, and living in California, and I was working in a group home with girls that were in drug and alcohol rehab, and I would live with them for a portion of time, like 4 days, and then I would go home I would leave for 3 days, come back, and when I was working in the group home, I was sitting in the office one day and this girl and I had a disagreement, and she took scissors and she chucked them at my face and she narrowly missed my eye. And there was this moment, it was like this moment that, there are moments in our life, and that was one of those moments. And I went, get me out of here. This enough is enough. Like I do not get paid enough. I don't want to lose my eye. No one's here. No one's witnessed this. It's just me here. And so A day or two later, I go to the meeting and I'm sitting in the meeting and I'm saying she needs to go. She needs to go. She's thrown scissors at, I basically would have lost my eye. I was there alone in the office. She was standing blocking the door. I wouldn't have had an escape. Just this is not working for me anymore. And they just looked at me and they said, "Nah, she's gonna stay." And I said, "I'll just excuse myself." And I went to the bathroom and I closed the door and I sat down. I curled into the bathroom floor and I started bawling my eyes out. And I said, "I'm going to move to Australia, meet the man of my dreams, and never come back here again." And then I wiped my tears off. I got back up. I sat down, didn't say a word in the meeting. And then 2 weeks later, I started packing my bags like I was never coming back. I packed my bags. I went to Australia with my mother. And at the time, I was casually dating a guy, and he wouldn't really commit. He was sort of, like, we're just in it for the fun. And I was waiting for him one day, and his roommate said, "There's this place called Byron Bay. Since you're going to Brisbane, if you just go there for New Year's Eve, it's supposed to be amazing. It's this really cool place in Australia." And I said, "All right." And then I left and I went on that trip, and it was New Year's Eve, and my mom and I went to Byron Bay. We drove there, and it wasn't close. It was maybe like, I don't remember how long, maybe 45 minutes or something to drive there. It wasn't like close. And we got there, and then my mom and I were just walking around, and this guy comes up behind me, and he hasn't even seen my face, and he says, "Have you tried the fairy floss?" And I'm like, and I turn around like, "Fairy floss?" And he goes, and he points to the band, and I was like, "Oh," in my American accent, "cotton candy?" And he's like, "Yeah." And I was like, "Oh, no, no, I haven't, like, no." Like, I was just a bit, taken back. And then he had this, I don't know, presence about him, and I said, like, "Oh, hi, hi." And he said, "Oh, are you here with your mom?" And I said, "Yeah, this is my mom." And we introduced ourselves to each other, and then I said, "Do you want to go, like, get a drink? Do you and your friend want to go get a drink?" And he said, "Yeah, that'd be great." And he and then the rest is sort of history. We hung out that night, and it was really great. And we went to like a party together. He said, "Your mom's welcome to come." My mom said, "I'll just sleep in the car." And he said, "No, I'm staying at a hostel. She can actually just stay, like, sleep in my bed while we go out, and then we can go grab her when we're done." So my mom did that. She slept in his bed in the hostel, and then I went and collected her, and then I drove home that night. And then the next day, we spent the whole day together, and he said, "Have you ever heard of Skype?" And I was like, "Oh, no." And he's like, "We can see each other face to face." And I was like, "Oh, really?" Because this is a long time ago when that wasn't a thing. And then, yeah, so he called me, and we chatted every day for 2 hours a day for 3 months until I agreed to come see him. And I said, "If I love it there, I'll bring two suitcases and I'll leave one there." And I did. I left one there, and then I came back another month later, and I was moved there by May. So we met on December 30,
Wow.
moved by May, and by the next July we were married, and then I had my son soon after.
Oh my goodness.
Yes.
I
So,
love it. How awesome
yeah.
is that?
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yes. Oh, I just love things like that. Like when things
Mm.
work the way that they're supposed to work,
Yeah.
beautiful. Love
Yeah.
it. That is so
Yeah.
exciting. Thank you for sharing that with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, tell me a little bit about this Women's Next Chapter Mentor Gene Keys Guide. What does that mean for people that are, what are you doing? How are you helping?
Yeah. I like to call, like, the mentorship. I don't like to call myself a coach because I believe I put guidelines like this. I let people walk their own life, and I just put the guidelines, and I go, "Nah, nah, let's look at that. Let's look at that." And so they are on their own path, and I'm just sort of like, okay, I've had the experience of, doing a lot of work on myself, and I've walked many of the walks that they've walked, so I've had the experience of being where they've been. And so I think it's my personal experience, and I've studied in many modalities, but really what gives my work meaning is I've been through it, and I am the proof that it works, right? So it's like people, especially women, they're on this journey, and they're second guessing themselves. They're not trusting themselves. They don't, their nervous system isn't regulated. And so and then just holding space for them so that they can learn how to regulate. And many people that have worked with me would know that I'm very much no bullshit. Like, I'm just going to tell you the way it is. I'm very loving and super compassionate, but I'm also not going to put up with excuses, because if you want to change your life and live a life that you love, then you got to take accountability for it. So I definitely draw in women that are ready to make that change, that are not willing to sit in the excuses. And that's what it looks like. I use the Gene Keys as a guide for understanding how they naturally are in the world, and then I support them in how they naturally are, then rather than in how I want them to be. It's like, how are you exactly you, and how do I support you to become the fullest version of who you already are?
Yeah, I love that. And with any coach that I'm talking with, I'm an NLP practitioner.
Hmm.
So with any person that I talk to in my business or any other coach, a lot of these people that come to me or to anybody else, accountability is the start. I mean, you
Hmm.
have to be able to take accountability for yourself. For me, I would love it if you're loving yourself by the time you get to me.
Hmm.
I mean, a self-love journey. I always say to people, I bet you if I came into your house right now, you probably have three, like, self-help books in your house, which is great. That's awesome. But if you
Hmm.
don't love yourself, you're not going to apply the learnings.
Yes,
I was just talking
exactly.
to my one brother about that today because he's in recovery from being an addict. And I said,
Mm.
I know when you go to your AA meetings, they say the first step is admitting there's a problem. I'm like,
Mm.
that should be the second step. The first one should be love yourself. Because everything you guys
Yes.
are about to learn, you're not going to apply if you
Mm.
don't love yourself. And I don't think
That's
people understand that. And then we get confused about what does self-love look like. I
mm.
get my nails done and I get my hair done, and I always say, that girl, that's maintenance. That's
Mm.
maintenance. That is not loving yourself. Loving yourself, because then they say, well, what do you do then? Because now I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to be doing. Well, for
Mm.
me, self-loving myself was slowing down. Slowing
Mm.
down, taking the superwoman cape off, not spreading myself so thin that I was like terry cloth. I was
Mm.
stretched like I was Gumby. I mean,
Mm.
you cannot do that. So that's been me honing into loving myself and taking care of me and knowing that that's not selfish, because when Darcie's full of love and happiness, man, that overpours to everybody else. Now my husband benefits, my daughter benefits, my granddaughters, my siblings, people that I talk to, my church
Mm.
family, everybody benefits. So I'm striving so much to reshape how women in particular are thinking. Well, I
Mm.
can't love myself first. I got to put my kids first. I got to put
Mm.
this person. They're going to initially benefit from what it is you're doing for yourself. I just want to shake that into women so badly.
I hear you. I love
It's a
that.
hard one because we just feel like it's selfishness.
Mm. Yeah, it's the opposite.
It is the absolute opposite. Well,
Mm.
this has been super great, really informative.
Mm.
Your story is awesome. I'm a
Mm.
big cheerleader for you. I hope you realize that everything you're doing is really super cool. You've been
Mm.
through a lot of really tough things in your life, but you've done a lot of really cool things.
Mm.
So
Thank you.
thank you so much for taking the time to share it with me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, yeah. And you're such a bright light. You really are. I can just feel your light. Thank you for what you're doing.
Oh, thank you. I will receive that.
Ah.
Oh boy. All right, School of Hard Knocks, you know what to do. You can find Shauna Hawks at Shauna Hawks on all social media. Are you
Yeah.
everywhere? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and then at www.shaunahawks.com is her website. So go and do all of the things. As soon as you're done watching this episode, go and find her, like, love, share, comment, follow, do all of those things. There's more than enough room at the top of this mountain for all of us. And like I always say, healing is always possible when you are walking with the Lord. I'll see you guys in the next episode. I'd like to thank you for sharing your time with me today. And I'm so proud of you for stepping into your healing journey. Please share this with every single person that you know. I'm here to make the biggest impact possible, and I can only do that with you by my side. I hope you hit that follow button and you save me to your library so you never miss an episode. We just took another break out of your wall, and remember, with God, healing is always possible. I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.